13 Sinister Secrets of My Neighbor. What I discovered at night will haunt me forever. Lisa's heart raced with a sickening thud as the strange sounds erupted from her neighbor's house. The lingering noise of a creaking door was all too familiar, but these whispers dripped with a sinister undertone that sent shivers down her spine. Every night, the usually serene suburban neighborhood on the outskirts of Columbus transformed into a theater of dread. Just last week, shadows shifted across the fence, as if something was lurking, plotting, waiting. The air thickened with an unnatural chill that made her skin prickle. Out there, behind the comforting facade of Mr. Blake's property, lay secrets, dark secrets that twisted her gut with fear. After a grueling night serving at the diner, Lisa finally squeezed her way through the front door, the comforting sounds of crickets outside now drowned by the thudding in her chest. A flicker of light caught her eye. The Blake's yard was alive. It was too late for a backyard party, but figures hovered like wraiths under the full moon, whispering in a language that sent icy tendrils coiling around her spine. Something was definitely wrong with Mr. Blake and his perfect family. The notes started shortly after. Small pieces of crumpled paper slipped through her door, each message more cryptic and haunting than the last. Under the blood moon, oaths and shadows, they protect their own. The words wrapped around her mind, squeezing tighter with every note. Max was oblivious to the tension. At 12, curiosity outweighed fear. That was the dangerous part. She could see the gleam in his eye as he became more entrenched in his secret investigations, asking too many questions about the Blakes, their late-night gatherings, and what he'd seen through his window. Lisa struggled to dismiss his keen observations while panic clawed at her insides. The carefree laughter of children had turned eerie, and the whispers from the backyard continued to haunt her thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One fateful evening, after confronting Max about following the shadows, he vanished into the night. Lisa burst through their front yard, lungs tight with panic, as she dashed down the street, every step echoing the fear gripping her heart. Neighbors emerged, sleep-drunk and crusty-eyed, shaking their heads at her frantic pleas. The diner buzzed with whispers of gossip, but none seemed the least bit concerned about Mr. Blake. They adored him. The realization crashed over her. She was alone in her fight. As shadows danced in the wind, Lisa's stomach twisted into knots filled with dread. The folklore she had scoffed at now pounded in her skull like a freight train. Blood oaths and forgotten promises to keep their dark secrets buried. But she was not going to bury hers. In the final moments of the night, she peeked through the Blake's half-open door, and what she saw turned her blood cold. The truth was a horrific revelation, a glimpse into madness. Just then, she heard a soft creak behind her, and in the darkness, lips curled upward into a sinister smile. The night was thick with secrets and the air crackled with dread. Lisa was in the belly of the beast and realized, she was no longer fighting just for Max but for her sanity. The real horror was just beginning. The tense silence hung heavily in the air as Lisa felt the prickle of fear crawl up her spine. She turned slowly, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The silhouette stood there, framed by the faint glow from the Blake's house, motionless yet alive with malice. A chill swept through her, freezing her feet to the ground. "Max," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, but it wasn't he, her son. It was Amelia Blake, Mr. Blake's daughter, and in the pale light, her face wore an unsettling grin that dug deep into Lisa's gut. "You shouldn't be peeking, Lisa," she whispered, her voice honeyed yet dripping with a dark undertone. "Secrets can get you in trouble." The shadows shifted around Amelia, as if she were the epicenter of dark energy. Lisa felt her stomach turn. "Where's Max? What have you done with him?" Amelia simply laughed, a sound that sliced through the night like a blade. "You don't understand, do you? This is his choice now, and yours too. The words wrapped around Lisa's throat, squeezing tighter with every syllable. Before Lisa could retort, a rustle sounded behind her. Her heart leaped, fear pulsing through her. She darted her eyes towards the sound but saw nothing. The air was growing thicker, heavy with unspoken words and looming dread. "You're in our territory now," Amelia continued, stepping closer, her smile widening. "We own this neighborhood. You think you can walk in here and take him back?" Lisa's hands trembled as she pressed against the doorframe, desperate to vanish. The world around her felt malevolent, the shadows moving as if they had a life of their own. "Please, Amelia. I just want my son." Her voice cracked, urgency fueling each word. Amelia tilted her head, the smirk fading slightly for the first time. "You need to decide. Stay in the darkness or emerge into the light. They're waiting. Max is waiting." The unknown terror that engulfed her heart now morphed into an unquenchable fury. She had to find Max. Sensing the urgency, Lisa took a step forward. "I'm not leaving without him." She crossed the threshold of the Blake residence, the warmth inside contrasting sharply with the chilling atmosphere outside. Inside, flickering candles cast eerie shadows along the walls. The air buzzed with murmurs, voices weaving a bizarre symphony that creeped beneath her skin. The room opened like a cave, revealing a circle of people, their faces obscured by darkness. In the center stood Max, eyes glazed and entranced, caught in a web spun from threads of cold, dark magic. Gasps echoed through the room, and all heads turned towards Lisa, their expressions a blend of curiosity and menace. "What are you doing here?" One voice hissed, each word dripped with disdain. Her heart raced as she lunged toward Max. "Wake up." "Max." But he didn't react. He remained transfixed, locked in an unseen grip that tugged at the corners of his youthful spirit. The ground trembled slightly beneath her feet, and the walls seemed to close in. Someone stepped forward. Mr. Blake, eyes gleaming with an unsettling light. "You've invaded our sanctum, Lisa," he declared, his tone both fatherly and ominous. "And now, you must pay the price." Lisa's body felt the weight of dread compressing her chest. She realized too late that uncovering the secrets of the Blakes had placed her family at a crossroads, a dark pact for survival against an ancient evil, and time was no longer on her side. Suddenly, the room filled with a chorus of whispers, rising to a fever pitch that bounced off the walls. Hands reached toward her, drawing her into their sinister embrace. A terrible choice loomed in the air: sacrifice or surrender. As Lisa felt herself being pulled into the gathering's thrall, she caught a glimpse of Max's eyes, suddenly clear and filled with terror as he looked at her, pleading silently for escape. The moment was a flicker, but it ignited something primal within her, a mother's love. Undeterred, the choice was clear. She would fight, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. But what hidden truths lay behind the Blake's smiling masks, with every heartbeat urging her forward? Lisa realized this was only the beginning. What would she uncover next? And would she have the strength to stand against what lay ahead? Lisa's heart raced in her chest as she lunged toward Max. The voices, now a swirling tempest of sound, morphed into a growl, urging her to relent. "They're not your friends, Max," she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. But the boy stood unmoving, his face a mask of terror and confusion. The flickering candlelight cast sinister shapes on the walls. Twisted shadows appeared to stretch out, reaching for her like skeletal hands. "You can't fight us," Mr. Blake said, his smile widening unnaturally. "Tonight, you either submit or you're lost forever." In that moment, Lisa felt the cold rush of panic tighten around her, suffocating. The whispers grew louder, filling her mind with snippets of fear and dread. "Leave. You don't belong." Max blinked, those familiar blue eyes suddenly dulled, as if a shadow had taken them both. "Mom," he murmured, a flicker of recognition cutting through the haze. "What is happening?" "Stay with me, Max. You've got to fight it." She dove forward, breaking through the semicircle of onlookers who suddenly recoiled as if she'd thrown a hand grenade into their midst. But Lisa wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had been replaced by fierce resolve. As she reached for Max, the air grew colder, a bitter chill wrapping around her limbs. Mr. Blake raised his hand, and with it, the room darkened. Black tendrils of shadow swirled in the corners, moving with a life of their own, threatening to pull her back into the abyss. "You're too late, Lisa," he declared, his voice echoing in her mind like a hammer to glass. "Max belongs to us now." The world spun, life slipping like grains of sand through her fingers. Lisa grabbed Max's arm but found it locked in place, as if cemented to the ground. "Please, Max. Remember our stories. Fight them." Her words struck a nerve, his brows furrowed, shifting against the dark power that enslaved him. She could see it now, a current of darkness weaving through the room, a tether that bound the Blakes and their followers together, wrapping around Max with ghostly shrouds. "You will only make him suffer," a voice snarled from the shadows, a chorus of threats filled the air. "Let him go. Join us instead." Lisa could feel the tide of despair crashing down. Focus, she thought. What did she need to do? How could she bring him back? Embryonic instincts surged within her. She remembered the cozy nights reading aloud, the warmth of their family bond. "You are stronger than this," Lisa yelled, every shred of her energy pouring into her voice. "You are my son." Max stared through the murky veil, eyes flickering as comprehension battled against the darkness. "Mom, help me. Come on, Max. You're not alone." With every ounce of strength, Lisa yanked with all her force. Suddenly, it was as if 10,000 hands gripped her, pulling her back, dragging her into shadows more horrifying than any nightmare. Wails of fury rose around her, echoing that sinister promise of despair. In that moment of chaos, she clung tighter to Max's spirit, feeling the warmth of their memories intertwining. She unleashed a primal scream, one born from a mother's love, the very thing that had been breached. The shadows hesitated. Lisa felt the immediate shift as the voices turned into murmurs, confusion flooding through the crowd like an unexpected wave. Max's eyes lit up with recognition. He was fighting, clawing back from the abyss. "Stay with me, Max," she begged, pulling him towards the door, feeling the sinister energy weaken, ripple around them. And then she saw it, a light peeking through the cracks in the room, an exit twinkling beyond the darkness. But was it safety or a trap? Just then, Amelia stepped forward, her expression a mask of rage. "You think you can escape? You can't darken our door and leave unscathed." Lisa froze. The air churned with tension, the shadows shifting restless like predatory beasts. What awaited them outside? Were they truly free, or just stepping from one nightmare into another? "Max!" she shouted, her heart pounding in her ears. Too many questions lingered. How much power did they possess? What consequences laid ahead for straying into their world? "Hold on," she urged, taking a step toward the light, ready to fight for their freedom, but feeling the pull of darkness still lingering behind them. Could they escape? Would they unravel the horrifying truth behind the Blake's reign? With each step, the exhilaration of hope battled against the ominous certainty that they hadn't seen the last of what stalked them in the night. "Run!" Lisa shouted, desperately tugging at Max's hand. The flickering light shimmered just beyond the threshold, but she could hear the low growls echoing behind them. It was a kind of sound that wrapped around her heart, squeezing harder with each step she took away from the horror. Max's grip tightened around her fingers, his blue eyes wide, almost pleading. "What if it's a trick, Mom?" he gasped, uncertainty spilling forth with each breath. "No. It's our chance. We have to go, now," she urged. But as they began to inch toward the door, the shadows thickened, blurring the edges of their escape. The dark energy pulsed, heavier than ever, like a monstrous heartbeat. Mr. Blake's voice wove through the tension, oily and enticing. "You can't escape the power of the darkness that binds us, Lisa. It calls to you to let it in." Lisa's skin crawled. She could feel the suggestion curling around her mind, like fingers coaxing her closer to the abyss. No. She shook her head, gritting her teeth against the weight of hopelessness that threatened to drown her. Push through, Max. She said, trying to drown out the whispers that clawed at her thoughts. Remember how we read together. Think about those stories. We can make it. Suddenly, Amelia lunged forward, energy crackling in her palm like an electric fist. Don't you dare think that you can just walk away. You owe us, Lisa. Her eyes glimmered with malice, and Lisa could almost see the shadows feeding off her rage. I want to be part of this. Lisa yelled, turning back toward the door. They were so close now. But as they charged forward, a wall of darkness shot up from the ground, a tangible thing blocking their exit. It rolled and slithered like smoke, alive with intent, tendrils reaching out as if to ensnare them. Max gasped, his grip slipping slightly, and for a moment, Lisa felt panic swell within her. Mom! I can't. He cried, his voice cracking under the pressure, as if the shadows were pulling him in. Stay with me. She screamed. Remember who you are, Max. You're my son, and you are strong. The shadows rippled, a collective sigh escaping as confusion swept through, but they weren't finished yet. Join us, little boy, a whisper cooed from the gloom, wrapping around him like silk. You can be one of us no. Lisa roared, flinging her hands in front of her protectively. She poured every ounce of will into her gaze, willing the shadows away. Just then, she spotted a glimmer behind Max's eyes. Was it recognition? A spark of rebellion? Fight it, Max. Fight for us. For your life. Time seemed to stretch as the shadows coiled tighter, lashing out like a creature with fangs. But beneath it all, Lisa felt something shift. It was like a deep awakening in the heart of her son, an echo of their shared laughter, the sound of bedtime stories fluttering in the night air. Max trembled though, confusion etching his features. Mom, it hurts. In desperation, Lisa summoned her Lovelios and memories of warmth, laughter, and love, pushing it toward him as if it could knit them back together. You are more powerful than this. Don't let them take you. The darkness screamed when her memories brushed the surface. It recoiled slightly, a powerful force shunned. Lisa took a deep breath and made one last push. Now, Max. Together, one last time. Cling to our memories. Staring deep into the abyss of shadows, she felt a glint of defiance in him as he took a step forward, the bond flickering into life. But then, like a clap of thunder, the room exploded in an eruption of harsh screams, shadows converging in a frenzy of wrath. Join us. Lisa watched, horrified as the tendrils of darkness surged forward, greedily striking, hungry for her soul. They weren't just fighting for escape, they were battling for their very essence, their identities, everything that made them who they were. As the darkness lunged, flesh pressed painfully against the barrier of shadows. Would they be crushed under the weight of horror or fracture through the suffocating mold of despair? In a final, heart-stopping moment, Lisa turned ferociously toward Max, her voice cutting through the chaos like glass. Let us go. Now. But just as they were about to leap forward, their surroundings trembled. The shadows writhed and contorted, condensing into a monstrous figure that roared, blocking their path. And in that dreadful slam of fear, Lisa realized this might not just be about escape. What if this was a reckoning? In that instant, a fragment of ice slashed through Lisa's heart. They might not leave unscathed, but they would fight, covered in cold sweat, every breath chaotic. She prepared for the storm to come. But would the power of love be enough against the chilling darkness that waited? As the figure lunged forward, shadows devoured the light, ripping it away, engulfing everything in its wake. And the last thought that lingered in her mind was terrifying. Was this the end, or just the beginning? The darkness seeped closer, like the hands of fate reaching for them both. Max's scream shattered the air like glass, the sound drowning out the growls and whispers swirling around them. The monstrous figure blocking their escape loomed larger, a grotesque mass of shadow and malice. It curled like smoke, tendrils writhing, as if alive, hungry for their fear. "Mom, please!" Max shouted, his voice breaking, terror carving lines into his youthful features. He looked back at the roiling darkness, confusion and terror battling in his eyes. Lisa could feel the weight of despair pressing down on her chest. The creature, a shifting amalgamation of her worst nightmares, seemed to pulse with malevolence, eyes glowing like dying stars. "We have to stand together," she said, clenching her fists, determination flooding her heart. "We can't let it take us." The ground trembled beneath their feet, fissures opening to release whispers that slithered around them. "You belong with us, Lisa." Mr. Blake's voice oozed from the depths, slithering into her mind. "Give in. You have always belonged." "No," she shouted, forcing the words into the heart of the darkness. "I'll never belong to you." The shadow shrieked, recoiling slightly as if her defiance had wounded it. Max, drawing strength from her fierce resolve, took a step closer. "I can feel it, Mom," he cried. "We can't let it win." With every ounce of courage, Lisa beckoned forth their shared memories, their sun-soaked afternoons, gentle laughter around the dinner table, bedtime stories that had meant safety and comfort. Bursting with light, they coursed through her, filling her with warmth that flickered defiantly against the darkness, but the shadowed creature retaliated, a sudden swell of icy wind washing over them, extinguishing the flicker of hope. As the creatures advanced, tendrils lashed out, wrapping around Lisa's legs like cold ropes, binding her in place. "Mom!" Max screamed, eyes wide with horror. Desperation flooded her veins. "Max, hold on to me. Hold on to our memories," she urged, reaching through the suffocating shadows, heart pounding louder than ever. Suddenly, an unearthly roar erupted, shaking the very bones of the room. The monstrous figure shifted, expanding, and Lisa realized it was feeding off their fear. The more they panicked, the stronger it became. "I want to let it take you, Max," she howled, pulling against the dark bindings tightening around her. "We are more than this darkness." In that moment, a flicker of understanding shimmered in Max's eyes. "I remember, Mom. I remember everything." He squeezed her hand tighter, and their connection ignited like a live wire. Together, they summoned their bond past fires, igniting new flames. They began to push back against the shadows, refusing to let despair swallow them whole. But then, the creature surged forward with renewed fury. It lunged, jaws unhinging, shadows spilling forth, a tide of despair crashing toward them. Time itself warped, as if reality had bent under the pressure. "Close your eyes," Lisa shouted, desperately shielding Max. For a fleeting moment, she hoped against hope that their love could be enough to stand against this nightmare. Silence fell, the crushing kind that squeezed words from trapped lungs. And then, an explosion of light erupted around them, blinding in its intensity. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if burned, a primal scream escaping the creature that shattered the stillness of the room. Lisa felt an electric current course through her, warmth twisting into strength as the shadows shrieked. But then, too quickly, the light began to fade, scattering into tendrils of darkness that crept back toward them, eager to reclaim its stolen victory. "Mom! It's not over!" Max cried, fear lacing his words as the shadows circled them again, hungry and relentless. "Yes, it is!" she roared back, feeling fury bloom in her chest. "We will fight. We will break free." But as they readied themselves for the next wave, a haunting whispers floated through the air. "Join us, for the darkness never forgets." In that moment, Lisa felt the ground shift beneath her, the whirlpool of shadows beckoning. Would that desperate moment of defiance be enough? And then Max cried out, "Look!" He pointed toward the thickest veil of darkness. "What is it?" she asked, dread filling the space between them. A glimmer, a flicker of something far more sinister loomed behind the shadows like a specter waiting for its cue. They hadn't just stumbled into the darkness, they had awakened something else, something that would make the current nightmare look like child's play. As the world continued to tremble, Lisa's heart raced, each beat echoing against the rhythm of dread. Was it truly a fight for survival, or were they just pawns in a game much bigger than themselves? "Mom," what if Max began, uncertainty bleeding into his voice. "Shoo. We'll figure this out," she whispered fiercely. But inside, fear coiled tightly, and that flicker kept growing, a question that loomed larger in the pitch-black void. What else lurked in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike? The shadows pulsed hungrily, a dark tide swelling around Lisa and Max, a living entity craving their fear. Max's heart raced, its beat a staccato rhythm of dread echoing in his ears. The flicker behind the dark veil twisted and growled like a caged animal, waiting for the right moment to pounce. "Stay close, Max," Lisa shouted, her voice barely loud enough to penetrate the rising howl of the shadows. Her grip tightened around her son's hand, but the cold tendrils of darkness slithered closer, inching their way toward him. What was left of the light had become a distant memory, swallowed by the sinister onslaught. With every passing second, Lisa could feel the energy draining from her body, each breath choking out hope. The whispers deepened, a cacophony rising like a storm, promising despair and dread woven thick as a shroud. "Lisa, join us, no!" she screamed, her resolve igniting anew, pushing against the shackles of darkness tightening like a vice around them. Suddenly, Max stumbled, his eyes widening in horror. "Mom, behind you!" Instinct kicked in. Lisa turned just in time to see a glimmer of eyes pierce through the shadows, cold and unforgiving. They flared with an unearthly hunger that coursed through the air like ice. It wasn't he alone, masses of smaller figures floated behind it, swarming like a dark cloud hungry for flesh and soul. "Max, run!" Lisa shouted, a fierce instinct for preservation rising. But the shadows compelled her, wrapping tighter around her legs and rendering her immobile. She felt the icy grasp crawling up her torso, creeping toward her heart. In their shared moment of terror, Lisa caught a glimpse of the silhouette emerging from the darkness, a face shrouded in shadows, features too grotesque to comprehend. It looked human, almost, yet twisted in unimaginable ways, a reflection of despair and agony. The whispers in the dark escalated, now harmonizing in a symphony of sorrow. "You can't escape what you are. What you fear we await you." The ground beneath them began to crack, fissures breaking open like cavernous mouths, ready to swallow them whole. The gravitational pull of the darkness intensified, dragging at her limbs. "Mom! Fight it!" Max shrieked, pulling at her, desperation lacing his voice. "We can't lose." Drawing power from her fear for Max, Lisa stammered, "Look inside. Remember us. Remember who we are." She concentrated, summoning the memories of love and laughter, the warmth of shared dreams. But as she willed those feelings to rise, the shadows pushed back harder. Max squeezed her hand tighter, whispering fiercely, "I'm not afraid. We're together." For an instant, a flicker of light ignited from their bond, sending a shockwave through the darkness. The creature shuddered, shadows recoiling as if struck. It screeched, the sound piercing like nails against chalkboard, reverberating through her bones. But in that fleeting victory, the darkness surged, a tidal wave determined to reclaim its territory. Lisa felt the edges of her consciousness slipping, dragged into the void by the mournful cries echoing from the shadows. "Mom, don't let go!" Max yelled, his grip warm against the coldness enveloping them. As the shadows whipped around them like furious winds, Lisa's voice broke through, steely and unyielding. "We will not bow to darkness. Together, Max." Then, amid the chaos, a deep roar erupted from the shadows, a blend of furious disdain and ancient rage. The creature's true form twisted, revealing a churning mass of teeth and despair. Max's breath caught in his throat as realization dawned, his wide eyes reflecting the horror. "Mom, it wants more than fear. It wants us to surrender, to become part of it." Something sparked in Lisa, a profound clarity, a grim determination. "Then we can't let it." But just as they braced for another strike, the flicker re-emerged, spinning wildly, beckoning them with its sinister glow. It became evident, they hadn't merely found darkness but had stirred something far older, far more powerful. As the shadows lunged again, Lisa realized they were at a precipice. They could either fight together or descend into the depths of despair. The ground trembled violently, and the howl of the winds echoed in the void as they prepared to face what lay ahead, united against the nightmare. But there was one more revelation looming. The flicker in the shadows held a deeper truth, a secret entwined with their very existence. It glowed ominously, as if it possessed the key to their survival. "Mom, what if this changes everything?" Max whispered, and in that moment, a new echo joined the chorus of despair, a voice hauntingly familiar. Could they uncover the truth, or would the darkness consume them whole? The shadows recoiled at the sound of that familiar voice, a twisted echo lingering in Max's ears. A name slipped from Lisa's lips, barely a whisper but thick with dread. Dad in the abyss. Flashes of memories collided with horror. Fighting the shadows was no longer just about survival, it was about the past, about choices that had long been buried but were now clawing to the surface. Lisa's heart raced, a torrent of conflicting emotions crashing against her resolve. "Max, you need to focus." Her voice trembled under the weight of recollection, but the figures in the dark were already moving, undulating like waves of malice, twisting reality itself. They were searching, circling, waiting to grasp at their souls. At the forefront, that one twisted face, now disturbingly clear, bore the cruel semblance of someone she once knew. "You cannot deny him, deny me," it hissed, the distorted lips curling in a mocking grin. "No." Max shouted, but the words seemed drowned beneath the rising tide of shadows. They bore down with a suffocating intensity, the familiar voice from the dark now taunting, "Join us." Lisa embraced the darkness. "It is freedom." Max squeezed her hand with all the strength he could muster, grounding her in the present. "Mom, we can't give in." He turned to the flickering light, desperate and hopeful. "What is it? Please help us." The light pulsed with an urgency, illuminating the crack in the ground. It flickered in response to their pleas, swirling around them in a dance of chaos and hope. In that moment, Lisa's thoughts raced. If the shadows craved fear, perhaps there was another way. She recalled endless nights spent reading tales of heroes overcoming darkness, of love and courage conquering despair. "Remember who you are. Remember your love." She shouted into the void, her voice cutting through the fear with raw power. Each word was a lifeline, torn from the depths of her soul. Suddenly, the dark figures faltered. The screeches that escalated like tortured souls began to wane, replaced by a whimpering hum. The shadows recoiled, agitated, as if her memories were a light too fierce to bear. "Together!" Max yelled. "We can make them weaker." Drawing from their bond, they pushed their hearts together, their collective memories of laughter, warmth, and family igniting a tempest of light. The shadows hesitated, caught between their insatiable hunger and the glowing warmth that threatened to engulf them, but then the entity with the familiar twisted face laughed, a sound that clawed at their insides. "You think your memories can save you? They are nothing but fading light, illusions of the past. Darkness is eternal." Lisa's heart froze. Was it true? Had they only postponed the inevitable? She held Max tighter, determination flaring anew. "No. We'll make new memories. Right here. Right now." In an instant, the cracking ground beneath them erupted, a blinding light tearing through the shadow's grasp. The tendrils faltered, shrieking in agony as if caught by the sun. "Mom!" Max yelled, "Let it out." With every surge of emotion, every incandescent memory bursting forth, they were surrounding the darkness in a web of luminous energy. It flickered in response, at first retreating, but then bubbling like molten rage. The shadows screamed viciously, disoriented. Yet, even as they battled, Lisa felt something sinister bubble within her, a whisper from deep inside, tempting her to consider what if. What if surrender could be an escape instead of a fight? The shadows could promise freedom, release. "Mom!" Max's voice, unsteady, pulled her from the brink. Could she let it in? Was it worth the risk? Without hesitation, she shook her head, energy pouring from her. We are stronger than this. The swirling shadows absorbed her words but began to writhe, retreating like a storm backing off from the dawn. But in that moment of weakness, another sound emerged from the shadows, a guttural, haunting melody. Lisa glanced at the flicker, then back at Max, fear and hope coiling tightly within her chest. There was only one chance left. Could they combine their strength, their fears and hopes transform this darkness? But just as the thought crystallized, the shadows coalesced into a darker mass, eyes glinting with malice, poised for a final strike. Embrace it, Lisa, or lose him, the faceless figure taunted. Desperation clawed at her throat. Realization crashed over them both like a wave. Lisa looked at Max, hope battling fear, as she felt the darkness pull once more. Mom, no! Max shouted, a piercing cry of terror that echoed in the storm of shadows. The flicker brightened in response, forging a link between their hearts. But was it enough? And if they chose to face the shadows together, what secrets would the darkness reveal? In that anguishing moment, Lisa knew she would have to face her darkest fears. Could this finally be enough to push back the shadows, or would their choices seal their fate? Dread wrapped around them, leaving only one question: would they awaken the truth within, or become a new part of the darkness? The ground rumbled violently beneath them, a deep growl that resonated with the shadows, as if they were a living entity attached to every fear Lisa had ever harbored. Max's grip tightened, his eyes pleading. Around them, the shadows built in density, their forms shifting and squirming like a creature in a frenzy. The laughter of the twisted figure echoed, an inky sound that snaked into her ears and latched onto her thoughts. Join us, Lisa! It roared, the voice a sickly sweet syrup that seeped into deep recesses of her mind. What is left for you in the light? Nothing but pain. Shadows billowed, wrapping around her limbs, a suffocating weight that threatened to crush her resolve. She felt doubt seep in like ice water, cold and biting. Perhaps the darkness would be kinder after all. No! She screamed, an instinctual shout fueled by desperation. I want tea. But the shadows surged forward, pushing against her, lapping at her sides and pulling her toward the yawning abyss. Her heart hammered in her chest as unresolved memories flickered like old film reels, each one displaying a fragment of joy, of laughter, swiftly replaced by shadows of regret and heartache. Don't let them in! Max cried, his voice slicing through her haze. But even as he fought valiantly, she noticed the flicker of doubt in his own eyes. Was he wavering? I can feel it, Mom. He said, breathless with fear. It's trying to break us. Lisa searched the depths of her heart. She had to show Max the truth. Remember Dad? Remember how we survived together? She shouted, grasping at threads of hope. A flicker of light burst from within them, warming their skin like sunlight filtering through leaves. The shadows recoiled, hissing louder, an eerie chorus of rage. Yet the entity with the familiar face only grinned wider, its grotesque features twisted in malice, mocking the very sentiment Lisa tried to invoke. Yes, memories. Did they save your father? Did they hold him in the end? It sneered, voice dripping with disdain that sent chills racing down her spine. Lisa faltered, but not for long. She was her father's daughter, she would not allow its lies to consume her. No. We choose to fight. She declared, every ounce of her being infused with conviction. Max's face brightened for a fleeting moment, a glimmer of hope kindled by her words. Together then, Mom. Venturing deeper into their collective memories, they conjured images of laughter echoing in the halls, family dinners, late-night talks, and little joys that might flicker like candles against the onslaught of darkness. The light pulsated around them, a radiant barrier against the encroaching shadows that coiled hungrily, seeking to snuff their flame, but the darkness was relentless, morphing into towering figures that cast cold, long shadows over their souls. Futile. It elongated, advancing towards them with an ominous presence. You are nothing without your fears. The air thickened, charged with a static tension. Lisa could feel the weight of her choices bearing down, each second stretching time into eternity. The flicker of light began to dim, a warning as the shadows writhed in anticipation. What if they weren't strong enough? What if surrender was indeed the only escape? Mom! Max wrenched her from that line of thought. His terror-stricken face was the anchor in this storm. Fight it. Even if it's terrifying. She closed her eyes, summoned all her strength, every piece of love and light she could muster, and unleashed it into the void. The shadows recoiled, but the twisted figure laughed once more, deeper now, a taunting echo that shook her spirit. Then face the consequences of your defiance suddenly. The ground beneath them cracked loudly, the sound sharp and jarring. A fissure clawed its way through the dark, releasing an incandescent glow. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Was it salvation, or did the light beckon more horror? Mom, please. We have to move. Max shouted as the floor buckled like a wounded beast. Lisa hesitated, the allure of the light promising answers, entangled with the looming threat of the shadows. Behind them. What lay at the bottom of this chasm? Would they uncover the truth, or would it consume them whole? As the light throbbed with intensity, shadows swarmed, flickering out of control. She glanced at Max, fierce determination battling the growing dread inside her. They were running out of time, and the distance between hope and despair shrank rapidly. Would they take that final leap into the unknown, or be swallowed by the clutches of darkness forever? Together, they stood at the edge, hearts racing, breathing heavy. What truth waited below, and would it bend them to their will or free them altogether? With a deep, shuddering breath, Lisa held Max's gaze. The incandescent glow pulsed like a heartbeat, calling to them with a warmth that contrasted sharply against the icy shadows ravenously darting around them. The uncertainty of forever loomed above, but the fear of what lay ahead was more potent than that of the darkness behind. Okay, on three, she whispered, steel creeping into her voice. Max nodded, eyes wide, his fingers trembling around hers. 1, 2. The ground trembled again, a violent quake that sent shockwaves through their legs, splintering their resolve momentarily. Lisa's heart raced, the shadows hissed in angry protest, their form expanding and twisting relentlessly. 3. They jumped together, propelled by love and desperation, plunging into the glow. The world felt like it spun around them, a spiral of heat and cold, light and dark. As they fell, it all became a kaleidoscope of fragmented sensations, screams overlapping, laughter echoing, joy turning to despair. Then, suddenly, everything shifted. They landed hard, disoriented but instinctively entwined, their bodies on a strange, soft ground. The light enveloped them, contrasting sharply with the shadows that crested the chasm above. Lisa pushed herself up, looking around. They were in a cavern, lit by bioluminescent fungi that pulsed eerily in various shades of blue and green. Max gasped beside her. Where are we? I don't know, but we have to stay together. Lisa scanned their surroundings, her senses prickling. The air was thick and damp, heavy with secrets. The glow felt inviting, but something whispered caution in the back of her mind. Ahead, shadows flickered on the walls, shapes darting just out of sight. Larger than before, they shifted in the periphery of her vision, giving life to her worst fears. We should keep moving, she urged, feeling Max nodding beside her, his hand gripping hers tightly. As they ventured deeper into the cavern, the atmosphere grew heavier. The bioluminescent fungi cast eerie shadows, elongating their figures along the damp stone. Every sound echoed dripping water, distant whispers, the scuttling of unseen creatures that raised the hairs on the back of her neck. Mom, Max whispered, barely audible but laced with fear. What if we can't find a way out? Lisa squeezed his hand tighter, forcing her heart to steady against the rising tide of panic. We will find a way. Just trust me. But as they walked further, Lisa could feel a pull, an unsettling draw that directed her deeper into the heart of the cave. It felt almost alive, thrumming with dark energy. "Do you hear that?" Max asked suddenly, his voice trembling. "It's calling." Lisa froze. There it was, a low hum, a drawl mingling with the cadence of the dripping water. It was as if the cave itself was alive, beckoning them to listen, to uncover something buried deep beneath layers of stone and shadow. "What if it's a trap?" she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty as dread coiled around her heart. Max's gaze darted nervously about the cavern. "We can't just ignore it." They exchanged a look, the tension hanging in the air thick and palpable. The hum surged, vibrating through the ground beneath them, a promise of secrets untold. Lisa forced herself to take a step toward the sound, her feet feeling as heavy as lead. "Mom, wait." Max's voice cracked, desperation clawing at its edges. "Please, we don't know what that is." Then another sound joined the hum, a laugh, similar to the twisted figure they had fled from. It reverberated through the chamber, dripping with malice. "Welcome to the truth." The shadows beneath them danced, consuming the light as they shifted and surged, the laughter twisting like a serpent through the air. Lisa's heart raced again as the walls of the cave began to pulse in sync with the sinister laughter, threatening to close in. "Run!" she shouted, breaking the trance. She yanked Max away from the beckoning sounds, sprinting deeper into the cave, shadows clawing and reaching for what they could grasp. "Where now?" Max panted, panic lacing his voice. "I don't know. Just keep moving." Her breath hitched in her throat as the shadows closed in behind them, consuming the light they carried and replacing it with an all-consuming darkness. Ahead loomed a jagged tunnel, the darkness within impenetrable, but the path seemed to be their only hope. Lisa felt the shadows closing in around them. Would this be their path to freedom, or an even greater nightmare? They plunged into the tunnel, not daring to look back, their hearts pounding a frantic rhythm. The laughter echoed off the stones, swirling around them, now a cacophony of torment and temptation that begged them to turn back. Would they find their salvation in the heart of the unknown, or would they be lost forever in the dark embrace of the shadows? The tunnel narrowed, walls pressing in, a cacophony of whispers merging into one haunting phrase, "Join us forever." And as the walls began to pulse tighter around them, Lisa's mind screamed, was this truly the end? Or was there still a chance to uncover the darkest secret of all? There they were, the shadows closing in, hungry for despair, suffocating the light. Lisa clutched Max's hand fiercely, each step fueled by fear and love. "We have to keep moving," she urged, her voice a raw whisper against the rising tide of darkness. As they sprinted down the narrow tunnel, the shadows hissed, clawing at their heels, laced with promises of surrender. "Mom, I don't think I can keep this up," Max gasped, exhaustion lashed with panic etched across his young face. "No. You can. Focus on our love, Max. Remember how we faced everything together. Remember how we read stories, shared our laughs." Every pulse of her heart pressed on the hope that lingered in their bond, refusing to allow despair to take root. Just then, the dark laughter echoed again, twisted and cruel, sending chills racing down her spine. It felt familiar, younger than any nightmare she had ever faced, a haunting caller pulling her deeper into the dark. "You think you can run? You can't escape the truth." The voice reverberated, each word tinged with malice that wrapped around their ankles like chains, but then, amidst the cacophony, a flicker of warmth tugged at Lisa's heart, reminder that they had battled dark moments before. She recalled a memory of family laughter, of tale-telling at bedtime, of a brighter time when shadows were just shapes cast by the flickering candle. "Together, Max. Push against it," she cried, galvanizing strength from their memories. The shadows lunged, reaching for that moment, but the warmth of their bond ignited as Max's face lit up in determination. "We're not alone," he shouted, his voice ringing with a fighting spirit that cut through the oppressive air. In that moment, the shadows hesitated, forming into darker tendrils, swirling hesitantly, as if unsure. "You," the dark voice howled, "you think these memories will repel us? They are nothing but dust against what you face." "No," Lisa shouted, refusing to let the tendrils claw into their minds. They make us stronger. We will outshine this darkness. Her voice surged, fierce and unwavering, like an anthem resonating through the cavern. The shadows shrieked, recoiling in agony, but Lisa felt a sudden tremor beneath her feet. We have to hurry. They're not just shadows, this is a battlefield. She yanked Max with her, racing deeper down the tunnel, the oppressive darkness urging them to falter, but they pushed through, igniting the light of their memories with each step. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up into a vast chamber, and there was an ethereal glow swirled and shimmered at the center. Lisa felt a pulse in her chest, a throbbing rhythm that called to her. With wide eyes, she approached, the shadows slinking back, but they weren't gone. They awaited, crouched and ready, eyes glinting with lust for fear. What is happening? Max breathed in awe, the glow illuminating their faces with hope. I don't know, but Lisa murmured, moving closer, the warm light enveloping her. It felt like an embrace, like love itself manifesting into something real. Could this be the truth they had sought, the truth to battle the shadows? But just then, the twisted figure forced its way into the light, a ghastly visage echoing all her worst fears. You can't escape me, Lisa. It loomed closer, exuding an aura of dread while tendrils of shadows snaked out, ready to pounce. No. Lisa shouted back, her voice stronger, reaching for the radiance pulsing in the chamber. You're just a fragment of my fears. You can't control me. As light engulfed her and Max, she felt emotions surge, the warmth, the laughter, shared dreams risen from the depth of her spirit. Remember us. Lisa urged. Together, they stood against the void, the truth shining brighter than the shadows could consume. Recognition filled Max's eyes, a sudden clarity amid the chaos. We can do this, Mom. The air thickened, that familiar pull of insignificance clawing at her, but the light surged higher, illuminating even the darkest corners. With every ounce of love they summoned, the room vibrated, whispering the truth for the first time, a promise of hope aloud. To flourish unfettered. Together. Lisa cried, reaching for the light while the shadows shrieked, a flurry of anger and agony consuming the air. In a brilliant explosion, the shadows melted back like wax under fire, evaporating into oblivion as light clashed against darkness. Lisa and Max were consumed in radiance, their bodies tingling with the force of their triumph over despair. When the luminescence faded, they found themselves outside, unharmed, the bright sun glinting over their shoulders. The neighborhood was vibrant again, alive with normalcy, a stark contrast against the darkness they just battled. Tears brimmed in Lisa's eyes as she hugged Max tightly. We did it. We faced the darkness together. Max grinned, his blue eyes sparkling with exhilaration. I knew we could, Mom. Love is the strongest magic. As they walked home, side by side together, Lisa felt something bitterly poignant settle in her heart. The memories of the Blakes, their twisted secrets, and the darkness behind them would always linger, but she had faced them and walked away. No more shadows would hold sway over her. Their victory resided in the unconditional love and resilience they had forged as a family, and with each passing day, they would build brighter memories, learning that choices ignited light, illuminating the path against any darkness that dared to invade their lives. As night fell, they shared stories under the stars. Laughter echoing, knowing some battles are fought, but hope can bloom anew from despair. So if you enjoyed this journey, listen closely, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help keep our community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world. We're in this together.